Good Tuesday morning, everybody. Welcome to the WLBB Community Voice Program. Our show is brought to you by Tanner Health System here on News Talk 1330 FM 106.3 and streaming live online at newstalk1330.com. This morning we are on Facebook Live. Is that better audio for you, sir? Producer, sir? Thank you. Our guest this morning, he is currently the District 18 state representative from Georgia. Lives in Carrollton. He's a Republican. He's being challenged this November by Democrat Pat Rudy, and so he's got to make an effort all the way till November. And so he'll be on the ballot, and we hope to bring Patricia Rudy on the program later on this year. And Mr. Graddick can interview her, but today I get to interview Mr. Kevin Cooke. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I appreciate you coming. You know, we are on Facebook Live this morning, so you can wave to your constituents. We do appreciate you getting all gussied up this morning. And as you can see, we only have just a small bit of makeup, so I never get to take advantage of it. But I'm glad we got to hand that to you this morning.
And looks for all my voters in District 18, I do not have makeup on.
I don't know why they would even worry about that. I think they'd be like, oh, that's nice of Kevin to get all purred up for the morning show.
I do have the hair product then, as usual.
All right, let's not talk about hair. Hey, the session ended this year. I guess the biggest thing was passing the budget. You know, it's the thing you guys got to do every year. You got to take care of. I had Mike Dugan, State Senator, District 30, on the program about 2 weeks ago, and I'll take this idea from where he started the conversation. What were the most important things accomplished, you think, in this past session?
Well, obviously, having a balanced budget is one, from a fiscal perspective, very smart, intelligent, and that being in the state constitution keeps us from messing anything up, which is always a good thing. But just how we all do in our own day-to-day lives and balancing our budget at home, it's good to see government doing the same thing, because at the end of the day, it's taxpayers' money anyway. So, frankly, every year, that's what I'm most excited about. Now, there is a flip side of that. We do bond things. Bonding is borrowing, to be clear. We just call it something different. But we also have a AAA bond rating because we have been fiscally responsible over the years, and that has helped in those type of projects. So we get good rates as far as state borrowing money. But we're also up to $26 billion in the state budget, and that's pretty significant. Obviously, though, we've seen a lot of growth in the state, so that's also natural to a certain degree as well. One of the big things we did this year was, and I'm sure Senator Dugan talked about it, but we fully funded QBE.
That was one of his favorites, yeah.
Yeah, so that's one thing we've heard year in and year out that was a big deficiency when we would get done with the budget, and we are, I think, all were excited about that. For numerous reasons, but that, I think, is a really good thing. And are there areas where we could continue to look at and cut moving forward? Yes, I think in times of plenty, it's the best time to look at, is this the proper role and function of government? Look at every single area of the budget, because that being the quote-unquote treasurer of the state, that's where our heart's going to be. We got to see if this is what we should or shouldn't be doing. So I hope we do that a little bit more going forward, because just because we got it doesn't mean we should spend it. And I don't know if we'll get into this at some point, but another really good thing with this is we cut, and obviously a separate bill, but cut the state income tax. And with having a larger budget this year over year, as we've had the entire time I've been there, that was a big concern for me. But then when we cut the state income tax in another bill, it made it a lot more palatable to representatives like me and some others.
Kevin Cooke, he's the District 18 state rep here in Georgia, Republican out of Carrollton. He's our guest on this morning's Community Voice program. I want to say good morning to Jim Taylor, who I believe is listening to us in Villa Rook, actually watching us on Facebook Live. He shouted out to us. So good morning, Jim. Thanks for tuning in to the Facebook Live portion of the program. The two things you did mention, those were the two things that Dugan was the proudest of, by the way. And talking to board education members, I mentioned this to Dugan as well, and he kind of smacked me down and said, be appreciative of this, Worthington. But talking to the board education members about that, the QBE, it's like, okay, well, you've given us this money now, and so what do we do with it? Can we fund some more educators and maybe bring back some more educators and other thing, or should we be nervous about that you guys can't do it, provide the same money next year? If you hire somebody and we give this new job, and then we can't pay for it next year.
Sure. Well, again, I think another great thing about the way the legislature works is one legislature can't bind the hands of the next. So that's a double-edged sword, though. there are no guarantees. There's no guarantees in state government, period, in terms of the budget process. There's things that we have to fund per the Constitution, and those things we will. Education is one of them. Now, that said, with certain formulas, there again, there's times of difficulty in the budget. There's times where we've seen throughout my time it's been a struggle to get there, even when we've had the bounce back from the recession in 2008. So it's difficult to say one way or the other, but I tend to agree with Senator Dugan there. I mean, let's look at what we have now, and let's deal with that. This is the 2019 budget, so I'm not one that tends to worry. I just think we go ahead and look out in the future and try to plan the best we can, and then we deal with what's facing us then. So, it's like I'll just stop there. I won't use an analogy that I'd use with my kids because I don't want it to be seen as that I'm saying it in that regard. But sometimes it does get frustrating, frankly, when we hear things like that, because it's a difficult process. Just like it's setting a budget for a school board, setting a budget for a county, or setting a budget for a city, or setting a budget at home personally. Sometimes it's a difficult thing. You got to cut things out when you don't necessarily want to, but it just depends on what we have in revenue, and that's the great thing. We have been increasing in revenue every single year, but there's the flip side of the coin, like I mentioned earlier. For me, though, is we have to remember that's taxpayer money, and at the end of the day, I think an individual Georgian can spend it better than the General Assembly can. I think they can spend it better than the school board can. So that's my. Of course, that gets more into philosophy of government anyway. So
I assume our listeners and our Facebook viewers know and understand that you're probably among the top 10 no voters legislators. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that'd be correct. Yes.
Do you know how much that changed this year?
I don't.
You're like number 3 or 4 most recently.
Right.
Right?
I tend to be in the upper 5, but it's not because I want to be just voting no, which, by the way, it doesn't even eclipse 38% of the time. Mm-hmm. It's less than that. But when a piece of legislation violates the principles that I hold, particularly those that I told District 18 for a number of years now that I would stick to, I'm not going to vote for it. I don't care whose bill it is. It doesn't matter. Because if there's not consistency there, then how, one, can the people know that what I'm saying is true, and two, then we're trying to play with a moving target, or playing a card game that we make up rules for every other time we play.
I think District 18 know like the residents do know who they voted for and who is representing them. And I don't. You and I have talked about this on the show before, so I don't want to go too deep into that. Nathan Deal is wrapping up his second term this year. It will end this year. You and I had a lighthearted conversation about Deal a few years back that got you some attention. As he wraps up the 8 years, I mean, what can you say as a legislator about his is Georgia in a better place after having 8 years under Nathan Deal?
I think that he has done his best job as governor. I wish him and Miss Sandra very well into their retirement or whatever steps they take next with their family, business, etc. Hope he does well and enjoys it. I know that anytime you serve in public service it's a difficult thing, because you set aside a lot of your private life for life in public. Even if you're somebody like me, who I still spend a lot of time with my daughters, because I know they're only going to be small for a certain amount of time, and I'm going to enjoy it. So I'll at times miss some events, not that I'm directly asked to go to, but that I just could be at just to spend time with family. And I know he'll get to do that now, him and Miss Sandra both. So I wish him all the best there. When it comes to how he's governed, obviously, yes, you're correct. There's been plenty of issues where I have differed with him on, and at times been vocal. More times than not been vocal. I've just voted my machine. So for anybody who thinks that Kevin said too much, I could have said a lot more. So not that I'm doing anybody any favors there, but I think that obviously the business environment that exists within Georgia has been good. He's been focused on that, and clearly there's been some rewards for that focus. The legislature has really been a big help to him and his administration in that. We, to my knowledge, hadn't stood in the way of any of his initiatives at all, whether they were fully Republican or not. But he has looked for the business climate and the economy of Georgia to grow, and we've done that every single year. So you've got to give him credit for that. What I hope moving into the future, though, as we continue to expand in businesses in Georgia, that what we're not essentially doing is importing the issues and problems of the West Coast to Georgia by just having a mindset to just expand. Because the problem when you do that and you don't have the infrastructure necessarily to keep up, that makes it very difficult. And that's a concern I have, not for the next 4 years, 5 years, but the next 10, 15, 20 years. And how do we know that the economy is going to be in the same spot then? How do we know we'd have money to pay for new projects, et cetera, that we would necessarily have to have at that point? So it's a concern, but frankly, having more business is not always a concern to worry about. Like I said earlier, I mean, you just deal with what you got in front of you, and so I give him credit for that.
I probably should take a break here, but I wanted to ask one more question while it's rattling around in my brain. We got 3 more candidates left for the governor's race. That would begin in 2019. Of those 3 candidates, do you see yourself? I mean, who's most like your ideal candidate for governor?
I've supported Brian Kemp from the very beginning. Brian is a great guy. I've had an opportunity to work with him on the Regulated Industries Committee just because we've had some overlap there in the Secretary of State's office and the Regulated Industries Committee and what they do. So he has always been very honest and forthright up front with me. He's a great guy, got an absolutely awesome family. His wife, Marty, and their 3 daughters are absolutely great. She's a pistol and a go-getter, too. If you ever wonder where you stand, she can tell you, and I appreciate that in somebody. But he would conservatively is where I'm at, understands the issues, and is a real Georgian, and it's awesome to see that he made the runoff, and his numbers are going up at the right time. So I'm really encouraged by that, and I think he would do well by the state.
You talk about those runoffs, and initially people may. I don't want to say the majority of people, but you look at that and say, wow, Cagle won by double digits. He'll probably, in a runoff, he'll probably maintain that. But if you look deeper and maybe look at the next 3 candidates, at Rick Tillman, at Carroll County Republican committee president here locally, he had mentioned that, hey, if you look at those 3 candidates, they're more likely to those 3 candidates are more likely to support voters who will shift their vote to Kemp. Do you see that as well?
Yeah, I would agree with Dr. Tillman. I mean, that's exactly right. He's spot on there, I believe. One, the surge that Secretary of State Kemp had going right at the end, and frankly, how the Lieutenant Governor Cagle was backing off some, especially with spending the amount of money they did in the election, the primary itself. It's a big encouragement for people like me who've supported Brian from the beginning, and I think that he will do really well over the next 8-9 weeks.
District 18 State Rep Kevin Cooke is our guest on this morning's Community Voice program. You can watch us on Facebook Live this morning, or if you're at home or cruising in your car, newstalk1330.com, or, of course, Newstalk 1330 AM, FM 106.3. We'll take our first break, come back and talk more with Kevin Cooke after this.
At Tanner, we're advancing health throughout West Georgia and East Alabama because we know that exceptional care isn't based on how many patients we serve, but how well we serve them. That's why we're focused on quality, delivering the best possible care for our patients. It's why we're expanding our clinical services and building new facilities to serve our growing community. And it's why we're looking beyond our hospitals and medical practices to develop sustainable wellness and preventive health programs in our region. What makes a hospital great has changed. It's not how many beds we have. It's how well we care for the neighbors who need them. Delivering the right care to every patient, every time, is how Tanner is advancing health with medicine beyond measure. Learn more at tanner.org or find a physician on our medical staff by calling 770-214-CARE.
And welcome back, everybody, to the WLBB Community Voice Program, News Talk 1330, FM 106.3, and this morning on Facebook Live, where the Rayburns are watching us this morning. Got that out in Carrollton. And, hey, I heard something. I think I read it on the AJC. They talk about Georgia probably has less of a chance to make the playoffs this year than they did last year.
Yeah, well, they didn't really say we'd make the playoffs last year so,
too.
And we did.
It's kind of early talk of college football, but I know the pride is in you. Right. I mean, I can talk West Virginia Mountaineer football all year, but you obviously have a little more to talk about when it comes to college and football. So, again, back on the program here with Kevin Cooke, District 18 State Rep. He will be on the ballot in November. I mean, I guess everybody will be on the ballot. Everybody around will be on the ballot. He's I think the only one being challenged, or maybe Lynn Smith. Of our local reps and local senators, Kevin Cooke will be challenged by Pat Rudy, Democrat, on the ballot. And like I said, we will try and get Patricia on this program sometime before November and just talk about her issues. I've talked to her plenty. She's in the past, she's run for several seats and challenged you guys. And I think her most important thing is that she just wants to make sure people have an option to vote for a Democrat, and not just because a lot of our candidates do run unopposed.
Sure.
But do you feel like that's better for you? I mean, obviously,
I think
you'd rather not be unopposed. Perhaps it suggests that you're doing a good job, but but shouldn't voters? I mean, just to have that pressure on them all year long.
Sure, I think it's great. I really do. Just, even if it's down to let's have a conversation on philosophies of government and what we should and shouldn't be doing, and I think that Ms. Rudy provides a good outlet for that for some folks in District 18 who might not necessarily agree with me and my position. At the end of the day, though, I hope they respect me and what I've done, where I'm at. Then, if anything, that what I say is what I'll do, and they might not always agree with the decisions I make, but I think that what I'm doing is representing the district, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to have gotten to serve thus far, and grateful that I live in a very conservative district.
When I'm trying to put together questions in the morning, I mean, I can always go back to tons of questions, and if there are things that you want to talk about, we've talked about before, our listeners and viewers, give us a call on the Community Voice hotline, 678-601-8255. That's 678-601. Talk. Otherwise, I'm going to try and go through some things that actually just bounced out to me this morning. I was looking at the prison website, Carroll County Jail website, and I know there's a homeless person who was arrested for misdemeanor theft, and bond was set at $7,000. And I was just like, well, why? How's that person going to meet that? And it's probably not likely. So they're going to have to stay in jail till they actually go to court and have the hearing and thing. And there is a kind of something sweeping the nation right now. If you look up, you can look up Google and. Trying to see what the official phrasing of it, but it is a prison reform, and people are talking about ending the practice of using money bail as a means of pretrial detainment. And I guess the theory is, you're going to save money on some of the on having people stay in there if they can't afford the bail. You got to feed them and house them for however long until their trial comes up. And also, it suggests that bail affects the poor, pointing out that defendants will often admit to crimes simply because they know they cannot afford bail. Is that any kind of discussion? Because prison reform has come up in the last couple of years in legislators, but is that something that maybe an idea like that has come forward for you guys?
Sure. There's been numerous changes with the criminal justice reforms that we've implemented in Georgia, and frankly, that was one of Governor Deal's main initiatives, and we have passed most every single piece of legislation that's come out of that. Some of that includes some particulars, details about incarcerations, but when it comes to specifically what you're asking, that would really need to be fleshed out very well, because at the end of the day, jail or prison, what we use it for as a society, as a government, it's not that we're doing something because we're mad at somebody. It literally is to then punish, yes, but also protect the citizenry.
But when you think about, this misdemeanor theft. I mean, I believe this individual broke into a place and stole two things. Again, homeless. And there's going to be a bigger story there about why they probably did it. But a minor crime, and maybe they have to wait now 30 days to even have their trial, or a month to have their trial. I mean, is that?
Yeah,
because it does cost taxpayers money to
right. Yeah, and it does to a certain extent. But the issue and the problem that I think could arise is if somebody does something like that, they get turned loose. From my time in law enforcement, I can tell you that law enforcement sees a lot of the same people over and over.
Sure.
So a lot of times it's not an issue of money or jail or prison, or it's a lot of times an issue of the heart. But at the same time, you have to protect the citizens of the community and their things and businesses, because personal property that's part of a person. It's their things, it's their stuff. So yes, the act of taking something from somebody when nobody's hurting, a lot of people see it as a smaller issue, particularly obviously if it doesn't meet that felony threshold. But think about it, what it does a lot of times to people mentally. If it's somebody's personal home, then that's a real big issue. I mean, that affects families, that affects how they feel in their own home, their safety, et cetera. So there's more to it than that. I think we would need to be very careful in looking into exactly how we deal with that, and involve, obviously, the court system would be involved in any discussions there, but also law enforcement and how they would see things. Right.
Ask and you shall receive. We do have a phone call. Now, I want to make sure that our producer knows he has to punch it up on program in the middle there. And go ahead and pot that up. And I will go to line number 2. Good morning. You're on the Community Voice.
Good morning, friends. This is Carolyn Henderson.
It sounds like Carolyn Henderson. Good morning.
Kevin, it's always good to cast my vote for you when election rolls around. I couldn't imagine voting for anybody else to represent me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I wanted to ask you, would you recap for us the provisions or what's the new phone, phone-in, texting,
July
and all
1st,
that
texting,
is,
yeah.
So that I had several people to call me about it, and I said, well, I'm going to, I think, hear someone in the morning that's going to be able to tell us in
you're right,
layman's language.
And you're right, Carolyn, because Dugan,
so
Mike Dugan, for example, supported that, and I believe Kevin voted against it. So I tell you,
I was against it too. So I thank you, Kevin, for voting against it too.
We'll take our first break, give you a chance to grab a cup of coffee or something, and we'll get Kevin or second break. I'm sorry, Kevin answer that after we take our break. We've got about 8 minutes left in the program. Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you, Miss Carolyn.
And we'll take our second break, like I say. Community Voice brought to you by Tanner Health System here on News Talk 1330 FM 106.3, and we're on Facebook Live this morning.
At Tanner, we're advancing health throughout West Georgia and East Alabama because we know that exceptional care isn't based on how many patients we serve, but how well we serve them. That's why we're focused on quality, delivering the best possible care for our patients. It's why we're expanding our clinical services and building new facilities to serve our growing community. And it's why we're looking beyond our hospitals and medical practices to develop sustainable wellness and preventive health programs in our region. What makes a hospital great has changed. It's not how many beds we have. It's how well we care for the neighbors who need them. Delivering the right care to every patient, every time, is how Tanner is advancing health with medicine beyond measure. Learn more at tanner.org. or find a physician on our medical staff by calling 770-214-CARE.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the WLBB Community Voice program. Our show brought to you by Tanner Health System just about 6 minutes before 9 o'clock. I got a listener in Russellville, Arkansas this morning. Actually, she's watching us on Facebook Live. I know it's Arkansas. It's Leslie Smith McPherson. So good morning to her as well. She's a daily watcher and listener of our program, and we always appreciate her comments and input. So, again, Kevin Cooke, District 18 State Rep, our guest this morning. Before we went to the break, Carolyn asked us about that, I guess the hand. Well, it's more than just a hands-free bill now. It's pretty distracted driving.
Distracted driving is what it was called.
Can't touch your phone at all while you're driving. Can't be holding it. I think if you're viewed holding it in any way, that's potential for a ticket. It encourages drivers to use their Bluetooth. You voted no on that bill, Kevin. Why? Do you not care about our safety?
I did. I did vote no. Obviously, I do care about everybody's safety, but that said, this bill had numerous renditions by the time it finally ended, and obviously the Senate had their hand in it, and there were changes made, which some of them were very good. For instance, I have on an Apple Watch right now. The first version of this bill, you couldn't even have an Apple Watch on and be driving because it included any cellular device. So technically, I wouldn't be able to, I'd have had to take my watch off to be legally driving, which is ridiculous. Whenever we talk about a distracting driving bill, too, you have to define what distracted driving is, and that's very, very difficult, because I'm sure that there's some people listening right now that are probably eating a Chick-fil-A biscuit from Mr. David Daniels Chick-fil-A, and
which he has 2 locations here in Carrollton.
That's exactly right. And if you happen to drop a piece of that chicken out in your lap, I'm guessing you're going to look down to pick it up. I'm going to, because I'm going to eat it. It's my seat. It's clean.
Your car's clean, right?
Yeah. I mean, and if it's 5-second rule, right? But honestly, you're going to be distracted, whether it's that or for some of these ladies putting on their makeup in the morning. I see it all the time going down I-20.
Or people who are coming on radio programs. I hear they put makeup on too.
Yeah, I'd like to meet them sometime.
Okay.
But my wife, she's a beautiful lady. At times she's distracting because she is striking. I look over and look at her. Is that distracting? Is that part of it?
We're done. I mean, come on, Kevin. I mean, men cannot compete now. I mean, you just said the sweetest thing about you. I mean, it's not.
It's true.
It's not untrue. Yeah, it's true. But oh gosh, we can't compete now.
But that's the issue, though. Honestly, what is distracted driving? And when you start trying to unpack all that, it gets difficult. Now, what the bill does specifically is it prohibits physically holding or supporting a wireless device, telecommunication device. So that means if you're going down the interstate, for instance, you can't be driving with one hand and have your phone to your ear in your hand. People have been doing that for years, and I don't know of any statistic where they found that causes accidents. I do know that the author of the bill and others that worked on it were trying to eliminate really the texting and driving, the checking Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff, people just looking down. I've seen it. I've seen people reading a newspaper on their steering wheel as well, though. So how's it a lot different? So when we're making rules, making laws that for rules of the road and how it's going to go, we have to be very diligent that we don't have any unintended consequences to the point to where we're dictating exactly what you can and can't do in a vehicle that is not consistent. So I get back to the consistency thing. Is there difference in doing makeup and talking on a cell phone? I would argue that it's easier to talk on a cell phone than it is to do makeup.
So you would like to see more things put in the bill then?
I would like to see us not put in things like not being able to physically hold a cell phone while going down the road on the phone. Like if you have it to your ear, you could put it by this bill. You can put it on your shoulder and be driving with both hands and still be violating the law. And I think that's a big issue. You also can't send a text on any device. You can't watch a video or video recording. It also prohibits voice-to-text communications, which is interesting because I think that was kind of the whole point in the tech. I will say that technology.
That may be surprising to some people too.
The beginning. So the things that you can do is you can use it for navigation purposes and for dash cam videos, because the first rendition also made it illegal for the police to do what they do. Again, unintended consequences. We have to watch how we do things. And it passed, by the way. It didn't get fixed until it flung back our direction.
Into the house.
So the big issue for me is think about it this way. If you're at a stoplight or a stop sign, or even sitting there's been an accident and you're sitting on I-20 in your vehicle, if you pick up your phone to call somebody while sitting still, you just violated the law just like you were running 70, 75 miles an hour.
I got to cut you off, Casey. Okay. But we got 30 seconds left. Just want to tell everybody thank you for watching this morning and listening to us on News Talk 1330 FM 106.3. Our guest, District 18 State Rep Kevin Cooke. And I know we wanted to talk about the state transportation bill for nobody else other than Steve Graddick. We wouldn't have time. You'll be on the program several times in the next
I voted no. There you go.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a great day.